Hey, welcome to this week's podcast. I'd like to just kind of tee this one up for you guys. So, Scott and I have been dating a woman for several months. Feels much longer than it has been, but we've seen a lot of each other. And one day, a couple days ago, her and I were in my kitchen and we were just chatting back and forth. And I said, I wish that we could just tell everybody what it's like to be a unicorn. Okay. If you're already listening to this and you want to hit stop because I just used the word unicorn, just breathe for a minute. And for those of you that are like, what the fuck is a unicorn? Let me explain. In the lifestyle, which is the open community, there are words and descriptions for people that are a third that come into your relationship if you're into having threesomes. The women's description, the terminology that we have ascribed to her is a unicorn. Now, a unicorn, because she's rare, it's hard to find her. It's hard to keep her. I know this sounds terrible. For those of you that are super, super poly, sorry. I know you hate this terminology. I know that it objectifies people. I want to make this really clear and easy, though, for those of you that are not super up and up on lifestyle terminology so that you know what I'm talking about. Because I want to say a lot of my following is probably very new to lifestyle terminology. The men are known as bluefish. So if you're a man and you join a couple in a threesome, the man is referred to as the bluefish. Why a bluefish? I don't really know, but that's what it is. So unicorns, bluefish. And for most humans, if you were to ask them, what is your biggest sexual fantasy? 9 times out of 10, they say, I want a threesome. I'd love to have a threesome. So I got into my swinger group online where I have thousands and thousands of open lifestyle people in there. And I said, how many of you have actually had a threesome? And it was actually a tiny percentage of the lifestyle people. And the percentage overall for normal, monogamous people is even smaller. So people like the idea of having a threesome, but most of the time they've never had one. So on this week's Patreon, I have a podcast episode for you that is called How to Have a Fucking Threesome. Scott and I have tons of them. It's how we have sex with people outside of each other. We have the sex together with a third person. And for us in our specific dynamic, we are what I would consider to be poly, and we only date women. So we have threesomes all the time. And it's typically only with the same person because we have a closed throuple dynamic. So if you're listening again, you're like, what the fuck does that mean? Closed means we only sleep with this other woman who you're about to hear from. I'm really excited. In our throuple, because there's 3 of us in this relationship dynamic. Now, most of the time, it's just Scott and I having sex. But every now and then, our girlfriend joins us. And it's a beautiful, wonderful experience. So I talk more about how in the world do I have a threesome? How do I make this happen? How do I attract someone? How do I get a unicorn or a bluefish to even want to be a part of my world? How do I become part of a couple that a unicorn or a bluefish feels comfortable with? So some of today's conversation is some of this from our girlfriend's perspective, which is super fun. So that's what I'm teeing off today. I talk very little in this conversation with her. I'm going to set the stage. We're in my kitchen and we are at the bar at the kitchen, and her and I are kind of leaning in closely to each other, and we start to have this conversation. And I'm like, hey, do you care if I record this? I would love to share this on the podcast if you're comfortable with it. And she's like, yeah, let's go for it. So we hit record. And I asked her a couple questions, like, number one, whatever made you want to be with a couple? So she answers that. And then the second one being, what makes a couple worthy of having a third in their life? And so I hope that you enjoy this really special podcast. I'm excited to share our girlfriend with you in this way, in this audible way. I want to keep her private for her sake as much as for our sake. So I don't ever say her name, and she doesn't say her name, and you can just enjoy the recording. Bye.
Okay. So how this all started for me was after being pretty much asexual except for some self-pleasure. And then you know about my mushroom journey and all that. Diving into this and kind of rediscovering my sexuality from the standpoint of just like rediscovering like that I deserve pleasure, whether it's with a partner or not. And then playing in a space with a man and a woman who do this for a living. That's like part of their whatever, their jam or whatever, and getting to experience both masculine and feminine energy at the same time was, first of all, it was like experiencing them separately and like going, oh my God, I really love this masculine energy that I haven't had in my life for probably a decade. And then having some experiences where we were all moving in the same space and experiencing that at the same time, like both in my body, like experiencing like both masculine and feminine. That was when I connected the dot that I'm like, oh my God, I love that masculine and feminine contrast. Experiencing both of those together as like a threesome was just so beautiful to me. And I'm like, how can I make this happen? How can I get that in my life? And after like probably one or two more visits and you know, was asking me, he's like, well, have you got on any of the apps? Have you done this? I'm like, no, because I just really hadn't, you know, thought about how to do it. I was thinking about the profile and what do I say and these things. And he's like, well, what you really just say what you really want to experience, and you know, and with another couple or whatever. So that's kind of like the way the whole thing started, was desiring that both masculine and feminine energy at the same time. And I think it's kind of like evolved from there. Like, how do you meet people and vet people and talk to people and those kinds of things. And for me, it's really about connecting, you know, with both. I've only connected with a male and female, but like connecting with both people and the couple at the same time.
And so tell me a little bit about your background with men and women, because you have a history with both. So that might have made you a little bit maybe more open to considering being with a couple.
Yeah, I think so. I think part of, so I got married, you know, and had a daughter, married to a man, had a daughter, but knew kind of like I had these desires to be with a female. And then kind of like after that marriage broke up, I had started like, you know, interacting with like this woman, and we had a relationship. And then I kind of kept going back to, but am I like a lesbian? Am I like, and then, you know, kind of going back and forth, like having some, you know, relationships with men and women. And then pretty much just, there's so many things about being with a woman that I absolutely love. So I kind of just told myself a story or shut down or whatever it's not even really, I got into a relationship with a woman, and that's just was like, okay, I'm like a lesbian.
Now I'm a lesbian.
And now I'm a lesbian.
Forever.
And I'm a lesbian forever.
Yeah.
So that was, you know, I think we just get into these frameworks where like we're either this or we're that or this or whatever. And after being in a few relationships where they weren't long lasting, like like they were long-term relationships, but they ended up being not forever relationships. And just having these ideas of like, I'm like these desires of still being attracted to men, but like saying I'm a lesbian, and like, and then just being like abstinent for a while. And part of it was intentional because I was doing a lot of just kind of healing and not wanting to jump back into a relationship. But then it almost got to be a place of like it was the desert. It was like,
how do I get out of here?
How do I get out of here? You're like, there's got to be another way.
Yeah.
And not even realizing that was like, that was something that I was truly desiring, because I was so busy in my life and I just kind of kept pushing it down. And then having this, you know, I've told you before, I had this incredible like psilocybin journey where it gave me this time to like reflect, and all these things came up, and I was like, oh wow, I still am really attracted to men. I'm still really attracted to women. I mean, do I have to have a label? Do I have to like, does it have to just be this one way? And so that's kind of where things started opening up for me. So yeah.
I bet that felt very freeing to not just be the lesbian, you know.
Well, it opens up your whole world, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, for one thing, I haven't had a lot of great experience on apps in the past trying to find a woman on an app. I've dated some, and I don't know if that's just the apps, and I'm not really crazy about apps. But then here we are because of apps. Thank God for apps. So, but yeah, it was just, but it's also still just like this, there's so many things. It's like, it's kind of like coming out of the closet again on so many different levels, you know. It's like, you know, you came out once and, you know, and you're like, oh, I'm a lesbian. And now you're like, oh, no, I'm not. I'm this, I'm that. And it's just, anyway, whatever. You know,
it's really interesting to me, like these degrees of being open, right? So I'm obviously open and have discovered, like, I kind of like your journey, like, oh, I am bisexual. I really like women. And to hear lesbians talk about like their closed marriages and how thinking about an open marriage on top of being a lesbian is like a really intense move.
Right.
But it's just fascinating. There's these layers of openness, and some are like more accepted than others. So it's okay to be a lesbian, but it's not necessarily okay to have an open relationship.
Yeah, it's so. I think that is, even if you're picking a side, in other words, if you're picking to, you know, a woman that's choosing to be with another woman, we still are working from these frameworks, from like ancient frameworks of like marriage, like having the rights of marriage,
right?
Also monogamy, like having like we're still working from the frameworks that we grew up with like you're supposed to be, pick one person, you're supposed to be monogamous, whether it's male or female or whatever. That we're all working from those frameworks, and we're trying to like figure out how they fit into our life now, or how, you know, if this is the framework that we want to keep, or if we're making a new framework for ourselves, or whatever. So
it's almost like we should enter conversations of definition of who we are as, hi, I'm Jen and I'm fluid.
Yeah. And I can, you know, and so and also fluid is another, it can have layers. Like, are you gender fluid? Are you relationship fluid? And
I'm fluid, period.
Yeah. Or are you just fluid? So,
in all the ways.
Yeah. So
because then you give yourself permission to change your definition of associated gender, or, you know, who the heck you love.
I know.
Or
I mean,
whatever.
It's like it's when you make it's like when you make a decision about, well, red is my favorite color. Then red is my favorite color today, but it may not be,
right,
you know, tomorrow. I mean, that's just kind of like oversimplification, but it's kind of the same thing, really.
I want to ask you a different question.
Okay.
So what is it like being in relationship with a masculine person and a feminine person? Why do you crave or why do you want both? Can you give us a little bit of information about what that feels like?
Yeah, so I haven't really tried to define this, but I'll start with I think there's so many layers to this that it's going to be like, I need to write about this, but I'll start with just like the feeling of physical, like that, that primal, gritty, even like having like so the sensual, like both the energy and the sensual of like having like a beard like rubbing on you at the same time, and also just having this yummy like caressing, smooth, sensual yumminess at the same time, is the contrast of that is fucking erotic. I love it. So that would be I can start there, but I think there's way more layers to it. I think it's, I mean, I'm still trying to understand I've been talking about this a little bit more, my own, like, coming from my masculine and my feminine energy. What defines my when am I being masculine? When am I being feminine? I had a friend of mine tell me a couple of years ago, he was like, you really need to open up your, I don't even know chakra this, you really need to open up your heart chakra because you are so masculine. You have so much masculine energy going on right now. And I'm like, I talked about this. So a friend of mine asked me to share, you're gonna have to like edit a lot of this out probably.
Okay,
a friend
going.
of mine asked me to share like part of my mushroom journey with him. And I have the video, and it was so eye-opening for me. It was like on the downhill part of it, but it gave me like just talking about like the perspective of like having different perspectives. Now I'm way off track here. What was the question again?
No, I think you answered it well. It was why do you enjoy having masculine and feminine energy?
Yeah.
And what's interesting about you in particular is that you, to me, are very gender fluid. I pick up a lot of masculine energy off of you sometimes. And then other times, you'll walk in the house and you're very feminine. And so I think maybe that helps too.
And I think that's actually good for me to hear, because I don't always like think about it. Like, you don't always see your own stuff.
I find that you walk in the door soft and in your feminine.
Yeah.
And then after you get fucked real well, you leave more masculine.
Really?
There's something about your energy that shifts into more of like a masculine.
Interesting.
It's almost like I'm coming here to receive and be taken care of, and I'm leaving with my cup filled, and I can go do the damn things I need to do.
Oh wow, that is so. I'll have to think about that. Yeah, that's so interesting. But I think, starting with that place of sensuality and energy between the two, like I love contrast. Like if I'm looking at art, like a black and white contrast, or like if you're looking at a sculpture, like the positive and the negative space, those things are just so appealing to me on so many levels that I feel like there's also like layers to like to just energy with people taking care of things and people being nurturing and those different layers, that it's just very attractive to have that contrast.
Okay, I want to ask you another question.
Okay.
So in thinking as a third, which you are, you could also use terminology unicorn, which a lot of people don't like, but we'll just give you a label for today. You can be a pretty rainbow unicorn if you would like. And thinking about that energy and that character is one of the roles that you play. And if you think about other people that are in that unicorn / third space, bluefish, you can throw in men that are single and dating couples. What advice would you give couples for taking care of their third? What makes a couple be a kind of couple that you want to stay with longer term, or that you would give the time of day to have your presence with them?
So I'm going to use you guys as an example because it's my best example, I feel like. So being the third in this relationship, I feel like I'm still so new to this that I don't have a lot of experience. So I feel like I can only give you my own experience. But so I've had brief encounters with a couple of other couples, but this is just so different. I think because like I connected with you guys first. We had dinner, and like I loved both of your energy. And like that sapiosexual intellectual stimulation that's such a turn on for me, I get that from both of you guys. And so for me, I think it's not so much about the activity in the bedroom or the fun play that we have. It's the whole package. It's like I feel like you guys are interested in my life, and you're interested in what my interests are and what my dreams are and what I do, and you're interested in me as a person. And I come over here and watch movies with you or just hang out, and it's just a different experience than what I had really ever imagined when I got on the app. So I feel like if you're looking for a couple to play with and you want to have real fun, real relationships, not just like occasional once a week hookup or whatever, then you're looking at people that you want to hang out with, people that have the same interest, like just any other relationship, like fun, nice, kind people that care about you, and they're also interested in some of the same things. You can have like some of our conversations are a turn on to me. So that's what I'm looking for in any relationship, is like, yeah, sexy, kinky, fun, all of that is good. I love all of that yummy stuff that we get to play with, but also just like eating dinner together and having like this conversation started. We didn't even know where this was going. Oh, by the way, I'm like doing my laundry over here. Like, you're taking care of me. So yeah. So those kinds of things. So yeah.
We take care of each other because you brought dinner over last night, which was really nice.
Well, that's what, I think it should be that way. So yeah.
I'm going to take this a level deeper and ask you a deeper question. Okay. So if we're back to thinking from a couple's perspective, and a couple that says, I want a third, right? Because the theme here is like, how do I have a three-way? There's so many people that can't pull it off.
Right.
What is it from your perspective as the third that keeps you coming back? Is it, so think about the way that couples behave around a third, the way that there's this, I don't know if you've heard the terminology, but like couples privilege. There's a fine line, I think, when you're not married to the couple and they're in their own relationship and there's this family dynamic, but you also have your own life. This fine line of like being treated with respect and dignity. And I don't want to like put words in your mouth, but I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that, the way that you feel also in relationship with us.
So yeah, it's not awkward. It's weird. It's not, my friend says it's only weird if you make it weird or whatever, but it's not awkward at all. It's like when I come over here and I give both of you guys a hug, it's not ever like so I think I'm trying to figure out what it is. So I'm like, let me auditory process this. So I feel like I never feel like there's anything weird about me just coming up and touching you or touching Scott or us all touching each other, because I know that you guys you guys got to set that boundary. I never feel like, oh, I'm worried that I'm worried that Jen thinks I'm giving Scott more attention, or Scott thinks I never worry about that, because it just all feels like it's all like there's like this agreement that we're all here in this space and it's just all open and okay. And so, so I feel like that's part of it. Just like you're both welcoming me to be who I am and to be comfortable expressing myself with each of you. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it.
It may just be that easy.
Yeah, it may just be that easy. It's just, I think it's just so much about like, I really feel like it's the energy of the person and also the experience and the growth that you guys have done to know what you want, for the third to be kind of like, and me knowing what I want, and it just all syncing up. And I think some of that's just luck in the universe, you know, because I think you're going to, because from my other two couple experiences, this is not the same. And there's different reasons, I think, and I'm not going to go into those here, but I feel like there's different reasons for all that. But so I'll say, well, one of them, I could probably hang out and do dinner with them and have fun with them, but I don't know that we would have this kind of like relationship. The other one is like more like sexual, but I don't necessarily, we're not firing, like we don't have like these deep conversations and the crazy like desire. Like so I could talk to you for like, we could probably talk for 10 hours on this stuff. And this is interesting to me and it's interesting to you. And Scott and I could talk on something else probably for 10 hours. Those are the kind of people I want to hang out with, and getting to have sex is a fucking bonus. So, and you know, just getting to have friendship and getting to have like a relationship is like a bonus. So
it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the way I feel.
Do you have anything else you want to add? That was really helpful.
Yeah. I just think if whether you're a single or you're a couple, I mean, I can't really speak from the couple except for just being on the same page, you know, just talking things out and making sure that you're both open to, it's kind of like that boundaries, fears, desires conversation. But as a single, if you're, you know, it's a great way to learn how to communicate better and get out there and find out what you're looking for, and you just don't know until you give it a shot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey there. I love to tell you about my Patreon account. So as many of you know, as things become more and more censored, it's harder for content creators like us to stay live on these amazing platforms like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. So what I've done is our spicier content now lives over on Patreon. We currently have some really fun episodes up, like how to give amazing blowjobs. I also just recorded and uploaded my night in a dungeon with a dominatrix. What can you expect? Weekly episodes and weekly content, some of it being sex ed, some of it being story and erotic telling, like I just did with my night in the dungeon, some of it being more podcasting where we have a guest on. So for an entry price right now of $5 per month, you can hop into my Patreon account and check it out. Check the show notes below for more information. Hope to see you there. Bye.